Luke 17, verses 11 to 19. Now on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. And as he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." When he saw them, he said, "Go show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were cleansed. So before they had even arrived at the priests, they were already healed. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back, praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. He was a Samaritan. Jesus asked, "Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then Jesus said to him, "Rise and go. Your faith has made you well." Many of us are familiar with this story. And in the story, Jesus extended his hand of mercy to 10 lepers, but how many came back to thank him? Just 1. In your interactions with people today, what would you say is the ratio of gratefulness to ungratefulness? When I thought about it with my personal experience in church, in the workplace, and in society, it's 1 in 10. Nothing has changed from the days of the Bible. The 10 lepers has the worst disease of their day. Leprosy still exists today, by the way, but now there's a treatment for it. Leprosy attacks the body, leaving people with sores, missing fingers, and damaged limbs. In many cases, there's a loss of sensation in the nerve endings, leading to more damage to your body parts. The disease can take 30 years to run its course, and in that time, entire limbs could fall off without you feeling any sensation. So even if a rat is nibbling at your toe, you will never be able to even feel it. The emotional pain of a leper was probably even worse. They were removed from their families and their communities. There could be no contact whatsoever with their children or grandchildren. Can you imagine? No kisses or hugs from your family members because they were worried that they too will be affected. So when the group met Jesus, this was their hope. They were filled with anticipation. The Bible says they were healed before they even arrived at the priests. Can you imagine while they were walking to the priests, a hand may have reappeared and tingled with life. A crutch would have fell to the ground. A leg was back whole and complete. Their skin cleared, and the tiny hairs on their hands turned from white to black. I can imagine them screaming in delight, running home to their families, showing them the miracle that had happened. In this excitement, only one went back to Jesus to say thank you. Can you imagine the audacity? Jesus himself couldn't believe it. He asked, "Where are the other 9? Has no one else returned except this one?" Now, how often does this happen in our lives? We lose the sensation in our hearts and in our bodies of gratitude. We get the new job that we prayed for, the house that we dreamt of, the leave that we requested, the breath to see another day. But we are so slow to give thanks to God for life, for all that he has given to us, or give thanks to those around us for their acts of service or kindness. In life, we can never say thank you enough. But an absence of thank you speaks so loudly. Like when you give 110% at work, but you never get a thank you from your boss. Or when you do a kind deed for someone and they never show any gratitude. Why is it so difficult for us to acknowledge the good? So firstly, it's our never enough mindset. We have stable jobs, we have nice cars, we eat at good restaurants, and we keep entertained on our smartphones. It's the trap of thinking that our happiness is connected to what we have and not who we are. We tend to put more emphasis on our things than our relationships. We live in a culture that fuels this attitude, and this has the potential to crowd out the possibility of us living simple and grateful lives. We just never reach a place of contentment. Secondly, It's our pride or the I deserve it attitude. Now, how many of you have seen, almost every day I see a video on social media, you deserve it. There's always a young lady with a video on TikTok or somewhere saying, you deserve it. It's this world that tells us we deserve to be happy. We work so hard, so why not? It's easy to start believing that we automatically deserve things. It can happen to an individual or to an entire nation. It starts by raising children to believe that they can get whatever they want. And over time, they believe they can have and deserve everything that they have. Think about it. Why should you be grateful for something that you are entitled to have? Why should you be grateful for a job that doesn't pay you as much as you think you're worth? Why should you be grateful for your car when so many people are driving better cars than you? We are programmed to believe that we deserve the best. It's very easy to identify a thankful person. Thankful people hang out with each other. People with ingratitude and people who complain all the time also hang out with their group of people. The I deserve it attitude also makes it very difficult for us to comprehend that each of us benefited in various ways because others have invested in our lives or sacrificed so much to get us where we are today. Another reason we may battle to show gratitude is because of the company we keep. If we spend most of our time with grumblers and complainers, then chances are very high that that will rub off onto us. Our judgmental nature also causes us to be unthankful. I've heard so many times when someone receives an expensive gift, oh, they're rich, they can afford it. But no, they chose to go to the shop and spend that money on you, and that demands a thankful heart. Thanksgiving to others starts with our ability to give thanks to God our Father. Ephesians 5:2 tells us to give thanks to God for everything. 1 Thessalonians 5 tells us to give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Jesus Christ. An attitude of thanksgiving in both our trials and in our blessings will distinguish us from the rest of the world. This isn't easy to do. How do we remain thankful even when we're going through a really tough time? We must firstly believe that God is in charge of everything, and He has our best interests in heart. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." Knowing that God is working all things for our good should make us thankful. We see numerous accounts in Scripture of how people experienced miracles, yet they quickly forgot and started complaining so quickly again. The nation of Israel murmured and complained in the wilderness, even when God rained down provision miraculously for 40 years. God is not pleased when we don't have hearts of gratitude. We must also teach this principle to our children. We have a generation that feels entitled to everything and shows no gratitude. Now, I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me 2 weeks ago. So I took the kids to McDonald's, and while in the car park, a young man approached me. Well-dressed, very friendly, and he was selling bedding. So it looked quite good, the bed sheet, duvet cover, pillowcases, Egyptian cotton, with a specific thread count. So I wasn't really interested because I have enough bedding at home, but he pleaded with me to support him because he was trying to make a living, and he said he was selling it at a certain amount. I Googled it while I sat in the car, and yes, he was selling it at a much better price than it was online. So I said, okay, let me support this young man. So I took 2 sets, did an e-wallet, and I saved his number so I could refer other people to him. I do that often when I interact with people and get good service. 1 week later, I go to my room and I see this thin cloth on the bed, not even covering the bed. Threads are hanging on the sides. I was in shock. This was like a 0% thread count product. So I phoned the guy because I was obviously not impressed. And I said, I'm not happy with this product and I want to return it. I'm really disappointed that you could actually sell me this. He says, ma'am, it'll cost you 500 rand to return it. I'm like, what? This is nonsense. Tell me where you are and I'm going to come to you right now. By this time, I already knew I was dealing with a scoundrel, right? So he said he was in Nelspruit. I said, I work for the SABC. You know that I can expose you for defrauding people. The entire packaging and printing, I promise you, if you see it, it's something that you can buy at a store. It looks like you would go to the mall and buy it at a proper store. But this thing is so bad, the entire packaging and product is false. That means there's a company out there manufacturing false labels and everything, yeah. He says, no problem, what do you need from me? So I said, please send me a good, clear photograph of yourself. And he said, no problem, ma'am. I'll send you a very nice, handsome picture of myself. Do you want me to take a picture in the shade or in the sun? And then he went on to give me a story about how it's my fault for being so trusting. I shouldn't have bought it from him in the first place. He's a hustler, and people in general don't really care about anything but themselves. So he told me about how he felt about the world, basically. It ended up being an interesting conversation. So he doesn't feel bad. He just wants to make money, get rich, and he'll do it in whatever way he pleases. So here was a young man, completely ungrateful for the support he had received from me, and I'm sure from many other people who bought from him, purely because we saw him trying to supposedly make an honest living. His ingratitude prevented him from seeing beyond his present circumstance. It prevented him from getting any future customers and a possible thriving business. His ingratitude is likely to lead to many others not to support those trying to make a living. There are so many benefits that comes with having a heart of gratitude. Not only is it pleasing to God, but it has actually been scientifically proven that you'll make more friends and improve your general health and well-being. You'll have a higher self-esteem, and a spirit of gratitude helps you sleep better. Research has also shown that gratitude increases your mental strength, causing you less likely to suffer from post-traumatic stress and more likely to overcome trauma. There are so many opportunities to say thank you. The petrol attendant, the cashier, your family at home, your boss, your colleagues, your pastor, people who inspire and motivate you. Give thanks to God daily. The Bible teaches us the leaders constantly stopped, set up an altar, and made an offering to God in thanksgiving. The Hebrew word for gratitude means recognizing the good. Gratitude is something that needs to be constantly cultivated. It requires us to rewire our brain so that we notice the blessings around us. So it's something that doesn't just happen. It needs to be something that we purposely do. Gratitude isn't just about being nice. It's empowering. Gratitude forces us to look at the whole of our lives, the good and the bad, the privilege and the opportunity we have. It also forces us to look at the raw deals we've been given, the things we are lacking, the pain and injustices and suffering that we go through. Gratitude says, that is not the whole story of who I am. Yes. It would not have been easy for us going through so many challenges, being sick, not knowing whether you were going to make it. Many have gone through a divorce, suffered rejection, lost a job, or even a loved one. Gratitude invalidates the false narrative that despair is the last word. Gratitude gives us a new story. It says, I appreciate the journey I've come through and the lessons I've learned. I believe that God is still in control. As a child, I remember going to home cells in Durban. And soon after starting the meeting, the leader would ask, would anyone like to give thanks to God? We would sit around in someone's house, and every day that we met, week after week, people would share their testimonies, the little and big things they acknowledged that God has done. We were still kids. I was probably, 10, 11, 12 at that time. And as children, most of us repeated exactly what the other children said. So we said, I'd like to thank God for keeping us safe, for a roof above our heads, for food, and for helping us with our schoolwork. But how precious that was. In the simplicity of that gathering, the aroma of thanksgiving filled the room. How wonderful it would be if we could install this in our homes every day. When doing our devotionals and taking communion with our families, ask everyone around the table to share what they are thankful for. Without giving thanks regularly, we'll stay defined by our misfortunes and bound by our pain and resentment, constantly asking ourselves, why does this always happen to me? Regular gratitude rescues us from this powerlessness. It begins to reframe our lives and our minds and empowers us in possibilities. Gratitude can even help us in moments of temptation. Think about David in the Bible, who took Bathsheba and arranged to have her husband killed so that he could make her his wife. In 2 Samuel 12, Nathan goes to him and says, David, you had everything. You had people, power, influence, purpose, reputation, and anything else you could ever needed or wanted. So why go and take now what is not yours? David's sin was born out of ingratitude. Seeing Bathsheba, he may have thought or even said out loud, gosh, that is a beautiful woman. But if he had been cultivating gratitude, his next thought may have been, she's not mine. And in my case, I'm a married man. And even if my wife doesn't look like her, I love my wife. Then David may have turned away and asked God to bless Bathsheba and her husband and carry on with his own life. But David was not thankful for what he had. Gratitude helps us to accept the conditions of our own life and our own limits and boundaries, and not just accept it as a mundane life with resentment, but to accept it as a garden of flourishing and joy. The emotion of feeling grateful doesn't happen naturally. It's the result of a deliberate choice of demonstrating gratitude. In other words, you don't show gratitude because you feel grateful. You feel grateful because you show gratitude. We don't show gratitude because we feel grateful. We feel grateful because we show gratitude. Our attitudes can sabotage our potential to be grateful. And to overcome this, we have to take specific action. We have to become intentional about showing gratitude. If we want to battle the never enough attitude, we have to become a person who buys less and gives more. If we want to get over the I deserve it attitude, we should do our work diligently, celebrate the small things, and keep our expectations in check. And overcoming the it's all about me attitude will entail taking the time at every opportunity to thank the people that have made big and small differences in our lives. This includes your husband or wife, children, parents, siblings, pastors, colleagues, neighbors, your manager, and the list goes on. We must express gratitude for who we are and not just what we have. And it all starts with giving thanks to God. If we are able to honor God who created us so fearfully and wonderfully, then it will be so easy for us to honor and express gratitude to everyone around us. Giving thanks in all things grounds us in humility. It liberates and empowers us. It keeps us living in faith, and it improves our lives with others. I thought I'll share with you a few examples of how we as a family have expressed thanksgiving that you can also consider. When Gabby was born, we were so grateful to the gynae who brought her into the world so safely after such a traumatic pregnancy. It was months later, and we were retired. He was retired by then. We are far from that. But it was constantly on our minds to bless this man, to say thank you. So we bought him a whole lot of goodies and gave it to his secretary. We went and dropped it off at the Santon Mediclinic, and she was so shocked that she said, "Don't worry, I will take it to him personally to say thank you," and she did that. When you say thank you is not enough. What is the sentence that comes after thank you? Let's put some thought into that. Thank you. Thank you for inspiring me. Thank you. I didn't think of things in that way. Now you've given me perspective. Thank you for this present. I've always wanted this, but I had never had the chance to buy it for myself. When we look at the sentences after the words thank you, that helps us to feel gratitude. I'm still in contact with many of my teachers in high school today because of the spirit of gratitude, being able to recognize the good in each other. Sit around with your family as you do communion this weekend. You can discuss someone who helped you when you needed something, someone who listens to you when you need a friend, someone who you always see at a store or a restaurant who's always kind to you, someone who taught you something new that you learned. You can discuss these things with your family to be able to foster the spirit of gratitude. I pray that as sons of God, each of us will daily recognize the good in others, and that we will all work harder at developing an attitude of gratitude.